Good afternoon, all. CamelbackTrading.org coming to you this Thursday afternoon, August 6th. We're looking at the last 2 days of the SPY ETF's market profile here on Window Trader. And plain and simple, they got me. I traded like a mindless machine. I'll explain it in a minute. The market ended up doing in from I period on what I thought it would do in C. We finally filled the gaps. There's nothing now really to stop us from getting the all-time high. We had an outside day up. So let's go over what happened, what I did, why I did it. Very frustrating day. These algos can be frustrating, but I have nobody to blame but myself. I will never blame anybody, obviously, but myself when it comes to trading. So I had a very good 3 trades to start the day. A period open, ran up to POC. Perfect POC. I said that's a nice short. We should hit a speed bump. It did, came in, made money on it. B period. Now look, we traded almost all of M's range in A and then B. B period takes out A's high. We're one time framing up. I said, okay, we're definitely going to go get the gap. We got our gap. I did not know at the time that ES did not get their gap or overnight, but I did. And that's going to be an important factor in the afternoon when I talk to you what happened. Value started on the day lower, went overlapping to lower, went unchanged, went overlapping to higher. Now that's where we ended up, but this is early in the day I'm talking. So when C period opened, I took a short. I didn't think singles would hold. That worked out beautifully. So I was 3 for 3. Nothing huge, but I was 3 for 3. Where I got in trouble is now I'm like, well, they worked very hard to get value to overlap into higher. So I'm like, I think we should hold B's low and keep value here. So I started buying calls. So my first plays, by the way, the A short was 332 puts. The B calls were 331 calls. The C puts were 333. And then now these C calls were 331 calls, all expiration for tomorrow. I said, if we take out B's low, I'll get out. Well, Paul gets stubborn. We got down, got out, started adding. I was long some pretty decent size. I got nervous when we took out the opening and took out yesterday's low. I had decent size. I was out a decent amount. I was like, if we have single prints after this time frame, I'm out. Well, should have added because we not only didn't we have single prints, we got back above the opening, came back up. I was able to get out. I lost everything I had made on those first 3 trades, but I was basically flat on the day. It's down like $100. I was like, okay, let's start over. So what happens? D period has an inside bar. I'm like, okay. E period starts. I'm like, well, that's some pretty good information now. They tried. Now, again, remember, I didn't know ES didn't fill their gap. But I know we did. I'm like, well, maybe that's all they wanted to do. So when E took out D's low and got below the opening, I bought 100 puts. Bought the 333 puts. E rallied. I bought more. I'm like, okay. We haven't taken out D's high yet, right? I didn't want to go up. I didn't want to see us go 5 for 5 wide. So I added. I was on pretty decent size, over 200. F open came down a little bit. I'm holding on to them. I'm like, if we get back, I'm sorry. Yeah, we didn't come back down. So now F opened. I'm like, well, I have to get below the open. If we don't, I'm in trouble. Well, obviously that didn't happen. F takes out E. I get out of the trade, and I'm out a decent amount of money. So now what happens? F takes out E. Now G takes out F for one-time framing. Up, up, up. Now, here's the issue. I now got basically whipsawed, right? I was long here, lost it. I was short here, lost it. If that hadn't happened and my mental reserve was at full capacity, there's no doubt that I would have gotten long here to at least pop the top. And by that time, I knew that the ES hadn't gotten their gap yet. I'm like, well, they're going to get the gap. And the thing was, I wanted to go long for decent size, but after being whipsawed, I didn't have my heart in it because it's like, well, the way the tempo stinks. Maybe we don't get the high yet and we roll over and then I get long. That's why I didn't want to take that long at that point. Well, lo and behold, you saw what happened. And I also said before we took out the gap, I said, one of two things will happen. I said, we need something to lean on. So that means you're either going to fill the ES gap, come back, and get POC wider and or get an afternoon pullback low, or we are going trend. One or two is going to happen. We're not going to. There was no doubt in my mind. Well, we see what transpired. So we ripped. So now because I'm down a decent amount, and again, this is the worst way to trade. You can't put in your head what you're down when you're looking to take a trade. That would have been the right trade to go long. Shouldn't, right? So this is all lessons to learn out there. So I just watched it. At least I didn't get short, at least not yet. I just let it rip. The higher it went, I'm like, I hope it really rips and gets a little stretched out. I need some two-sided trade. So what I did in L was I took a put of size. The problem was I should have waited just a little bit because when you're buying 500 contracts, each dime is $5,000. So you don't want to get in a hole right away. Well, that's what happened. I bought 500 of the 335 puts at $1.94, and they immediately went to 184 and then into the 170s. I was like, I don't want. And this at the point we had not taken out K's high yet when I bought the first 500. I'm like, hopefully I think we could fill the singles. I added, came in, took some off. I added one more time. Now, believe it or not, on that trade, it took a lot of work because finally M flushed out. I basically broke even on that trade, even though I was in a hole big on the first 500. And I ended up bumping it up to over 700. So the money I lost on the day was this trade in E when I thought we were going to take it out. So what happened today? Well, a couple of things. I didn't realize the ES didn't get their gap. Once we started one time framing up, for sure I should have gotten long because you knew now they were going to go get it. So for sure that was one thing, and my mindset wasn't right. Second, this trade, what happened here is what I thought was going to happen here. Does that excuse my stubbornness once we took out B's low? It does not. But that trade, believe it or not, I got back most of the money. Yeah, I lost what I was up, but I got back everything. I was basically flat. So very, very frustrating day. I hope that kind of explains it. When these algos do what they want to do, what they didn't see, what was the rhyme or reason for C? The market really wasn't long. Market probably came in, probably short overnight. So, maybe this was just short cover initially, and then they tried to push it down again? Possibly. But just my fault. All right. Destinations for the upside. First one will be today's high of 334.46. And then we have 334.82 afternoon rally high from February 21st. 335.81 daily high. Single prints 337.26 get filled at 55 from February 20th. And 338.64 daily high and a poor high. So you can see how long poor highs and poor lows can last. For the downside, we have two sets of single prints from our trend day. First one starts at K's low, 333.61 to 332.90. Second one is J's low, 332.76, gets filled at 64. B's high. Then we don't have anything until today's low of 331.13 and then filling the gap at 330.06. So we nibbled away at that gap today. But it's still 107 points. We took off 5 points. And more importantly, we had an outside day up where I was looking for an outside day down in E period. That's where we take out the previous day's low and close way above the previous day's high. At least I could still laugh, even though I had a horrible day. All my fault. Okay, let's go to the charts. Monthly. One time framing up. I'll call it 4 months right now. The all-time high is the next level. The only question is, do we back off a little bit first or do we go right for it in the next couple of days? Weekly, one time framing up now. This right now is 5 weeks. Right now, look at the extension we got above these last 2 weeks' highs. Pretty impressive. Puts the all-time high firmly in sight. And then the daily, same thing. I am going to call this balance only because we took out yesterday's low. So it's a 2-day balance However, it's an outside day up, which is very powerful, and we still have 2 gaps. Again, nothing, absolutely nothing standing in the way of the all-time high. Would it be better to trade sideways or come in a little bit first? Possibly. To get some poor structure repaired? Possibly. But I can't foresee, unless there's something really negative comes out, to stop us from getting there. And in the triple Q, since I've been following it, we've exploded out of a 4-week balance to the upside. So they're going higher. Same thing on the daily. Look at that beautiful hammer from the other day. Gap higher. One time framing up 4 days, and this day with beautiful extension. Nothing tells you to short the triple Qs just yet. Nothing. We have to come into balance and come out of balance to the downside. I firmly believe Apple is going to be trading at 500 before the end of the month, only because everybody's piling into it to get into it prior to the split. Anyway, I hope you had a much better day than I did trading. Have a great night. Come check us out at CamelbackTrading.org, because even when I'm not trading well, I walk you through it and keep people out of that poor trade. Have a great night, and we'll speak prior to the opening tomorrow.